Item number 1, discussion on resolution 1037-090825. A resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $2,428,600 in general obligation promissory notes, series 2025, and providing for other details and covenants with respect thereunto, and consider an appropriate motion for action.
Okay, so this item is related to your new well project. You've approved a construction contract at a previous meeting. This loan is being provided at 2.475% via the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources through their Clean Water Fund program. It's a 20-year term expiring May of 2045. This is a project that's been needing to be done for how many years, Rick? Long time? Long time.
Sounds like a great rate and a great program that we qualified for.
Yes, sir.
All right, looking for a motion.
Roll call with this one.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 1037-090825, authorizing the issuance and sale of up to 2.4 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2025.
I'll second.
All right, hearing a motion and a second. Are there any other questions, comments regarding this resolution? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Rachel?
Colhammer.
Aye.
Colnow.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
McReynolds.
Aye.
Dunham.
Aye.
Evert.
Aye.
All right, resolution carries. Moving on to new business, item number 2. Discussion on ordinance 712-090825, amending and recreating chapter 29-5 of the village's code of ordinances. EMS department to establish fees for frequent call for service non-transport properties in the village, and consider an appropriate motion for action. So I'm gonna start out before I let Zeke get into this, and then I really wanna make sure all the trustees weigh in on it. When this first came across my desk to look at, I understood why it did. I read through it a few times the first time I saw it, and then I put it back down on my desk and let myself process it for a while. And a variety of the things that have been brought up earlier in the comments and correspondence section are all spot on. And they're all many of the things that also caught my attention after I sat and processed them. I also wanted to share with everybody, I want to try to start giving you all a little learning tidbit about myself. So I'm going to share something so we can all get to know each other better. I like to read, and I like to read all kinds of genre. I like sci-fi, romance, horror, even young adult. Some of that's actually the best stuff. A little variety of all, right? A little love, a little scare, a little whatever. There are times in my life that I try to actually be a normal resident and a father and a husband and try to live my life. And I am choosing in those moments to maybe not necessarily read, which is one of my passions. So I'm so fortunate that a lot of the residents in this community have my personal cell phone number and like to provide me reading material. And I tend to get a lot of screenshots of our local social media reading frenzies and my options on our social media pages. And what's awesome about that to me is that incorporates everything I just really listed in the genres I like. It's a little bit of everything. There's a love-hate relationship, there's some horror, there's kind of aliens coming out of the skies, changing things up. So this weekend I was trying to commit myself to my family, and I kept getting screenshots of a lot of different things and processing them. And while I'm trying to find humor in this, a lot of the things said on social media are very accurate. And I wish somewhere going forward, my good friend Mr. Keen and I can figure out a way for us to work together on behalf of the community. And he is right. I do see what's on those pages, whether I am choosing to read it or people are providing it for me to be read. And I think most of the trustees up here also are seeing what's on those pages. Maybe not all, but most are. So I do want to say that what was presented to me is very, very accurate, and there is concern amongst the residents. Does it get a little rom-com in a way? I guess it does out there, but there are very valid concerns. So I want to get into the discussion portion after Administrator Jackson is going to give some detail. I know you didn't think I was going to speak this long, but that's just where we're at. So I want to get into discussion with the trustees. I know where I want to go with this tonight, so I do want to hear from the trustees, but I do have a direction I want to go with this. So that being said, thank you all for continuing to provide me with, very excellent reading material. I keep it up. And with that being said, please give us the details, Administrator Jackson.
Yeah, so it was in my notes to bring this item back to the board approximately 1 year after enactment from the original ordinance. So the draft that is before you on page 17 represents some updates following a year of attempting to administer the original ordinance. So the original ordinance took into account a number of challenges. First of all, I'll get into some of the legal basis for it. So our collection rate right now stands at about 46% for EMS calls. So that's when we go to an address and interact with a patient and then bill that patient. The unfortunate part is we don't have a legal mechanism in Wisconsin to charge a patient for non-transport except to charge the property owner. So that's effectively referencing Wisconsin Statute 660628. I'm sure Josh will write that one down or look at it on video and find a way to talk about it later on. So the basis of the original ordinance enacted was to charge the property owner. So whether this is an apartment owner that has a tenant that's calling frequently, or just a single family homeowner, restaurant owner. So that has been on the books for the last year. We have had issues with administration of that. So there was one of the comments was about assisted living facilities. I'm going to describe a call that I went to at an assisted living facility. We were called to an assisted living facility in this community for a pulseless non-breather. So to put that in perspective, that is the worst possible call you can get as a paramedic or an EMT. We arrived on the scene to find staff standing outside the room of a patient sitting in her chair, very obviously non-responsive. We interacted with the patient who gave no responsiveness to pain via trap squeeze or sternal rub. We asked if the staff had considered beginning CPR on the patient because there was no pulse. The staff's response to this facility was, we're a no-lift facility. So we didn't put the patient on the ground from her chair and begin CPR. So at this point, 15 minutes into the scene, we begin CPR after putting the patient on the ground. Now, I can't imagine what it would be to have a loved one and know that the care of my loved one wasn't provided at the highest level within that facility. That's a travesty that that sort of thing would happen, or that your EMS personnel would have to encounter that on the scene. That's a real call that I went on, and a real outcome for that patient that wasn't particularly a good outcome. Facilities need to provide care for the patients if they're charged with providing that care, and ultimately to dump off upon the village's EMS providers a scarce resource at no fee represents a missed opportunity when we do have to go out on second simultaneous calls. It's not uncommon, well, let me say not uncommon. About 100 times a year, we will get a second simultaneous call for service. Let's call it between 100 and 130, depending upon the year. Some of those service calls are relatively low acuity. I've fallen and I need help back up out of bed, and in which case we can travel that call non-emergent. Some of those calls are very emergent. They're anaphylactic, where the patient is having some kind of a cardiac issue, and in which case timing matters. Given our staffing levels of 3x3 within the station, and the potential for some callback on nights and weekends, and using statistical analysis of what call probability is likely going to happen, we take that number to arrive at somewhere between 40 and 60 calls a year are going to receive delayed service. So if we have someone that is calling 911 because they need help back up into a bed, we certainly want to help. But what we shouldn't, in staff's opinion, have to contend with is a call back to that property 2, 3, 4 times in a month because that individual doesn't have care at the property. They're relying on EMS to be their primary care provider, not their emergency care provider. Moreover, within those assisted living facilities, they have competent nursing staff available to lift their patients back into bed. We're often called to put a patient back in bed that's fallen out so that they can get 2 things. One, a secondary checkout by a third-party provider, so that if they face abuse or neglect charges later on down the road, there's some documentation around that from a third party that checked them out. I made a different medical decision, either to put them back in bed and do an AMA release or to transport them to a hospital facility with the consent of staff. Communities across Wisconsin are looking at ordinances like this. You could get into, is the fee the right dollar amount? The $250 amount was what was proposed the very first time we adopted this. That's what I've inserted into the document here. And the real issue is what call do we begin charging? So if you could imagine a spreadsheet of every single property in the village, and then having your EMS staff across 3 different shifts maintain that spreadsheet in order to trigger a bill on the 3rd call to a property versus initiating a bill on every call to a property. So that really is the administrative cleanup here and the revisit. You all said you wanted to look at it again. Here it is to look at with some recommendations.
All right, thank you for that detail, and thank you for being on top of things when we talk about bringing them back a month, 6 months, a year later. I appreciate that. I would like to hear from everybody up here if you would like to.
I would actually like to table this, just based off the definition, because it says a definition of a frequent call property is 1. Last time I looked, frequency is the number 1. Frequency is like probably after 3.
3. So that's what's
Okay.
on the book. Yep.
Okay,
So
so
if you look at the definition, it says frequent, you're defining the caller as
You-
1 time.
You have an ordinance on the books that defines a frequent call property being billed after the 3rd call. So that's already on the books. These are amendments or proposed amendments to that.
I just think that makes some ambiguity in that definition. I'd like to table this, and I think we should all discuss this at
Okay.
another time.
excellent, so I appreciate that. So that was the direction that I was going to take. Okay, when I said that, I agree with that. I think there's some things, I just wanted to go down the board here today and get input if everybody's willing to get some
I
input
will
on.
hold my motion until the board speaks.
I would agree, thank you. Kelly, I don't know if you wanna chirp in, or, you know, I know you do have a medical background on things. I don't know if this is something you wanna comment on, or you just want to save it for the next conversation after it's tabled.
I mean, really, that kind of covered it. Clarification is my big issue. I feel unclear reading this.
Troy, do you have anything to add, or?
I think I'd like a little more time and maybe get a little more, like we heard earlier this morning, or this evening. It could be unfair for a business owner that has multiple calls, that they're not in control of if the patient takes transport or not. This is not unlike what the sheriff's department does right now for if they have to send somebody out to after hours for a business with an alarm after 3, that triggers and I think that was just increased to $375. So after the 3rd call, you're gonna receive a bill, whether it be a business or a home. But I think we should take a little bit more time and look at the exact verbiage on this to make sure that it's exactly what we want.
Thank you.
At 5:13, we received an email from a resident. So Kelly, if you give me your email after the meeting, I'll pass it to you. But I think we should all take a look at that as well. She also had concerns that Abra had brought up as well.
Thank you. Pat, anything?
Well, I believe it's not EMS's job to go to the facility and be lift assist. That's the job of the facility. So we gotta recoup the money, we have limited, money to do this, and the community's asked for 24/7 paramedic, coverage. We have that. We can't come up with, protecting Zeke on this one, we can't come up with any comparison, because tell me how many 6,000 and less communities have 24/7 paramedic level staff thing? No one. So, very rarely. So our neighbors don't. And if we're looking at apples here, our neighbors do not have. So, I'm just telling you, we're gonna have to do some revenue thing. If you ever wants 24/7 paramedic stuff, we're gonna have to get some revenue. Or we're gonna have to raise taxes, and this is one way to get revenue, and we're not reinventing the wheel here. Other communities do this. And other communities go out and have, if they're having lift assist, I'm telling you, that's not EMS's job, that's my opinion on this, so they have to pay. And whether the business should be charged for that, again, we need some more discussion on, that's tough, right? Or if it's a big apartment charge, I agree, we have to look at that, but, specific to, our elder facilities in the village, yes, they should be charged. That's not the job of EMS, that's not the job of paramedics, to lift someone up and put it in the bed. Yep, that's where I'm at.
All right, I appreciate the input, Pat, and actually everybody. That's why I said what I said earlier too. I just feel there's a couple of things, and it's not a ton, but it's a couple of things we tighten up, fix a little bit of the wording. I'll just give you one example that bothered me the first time I read it. Like I said, I put it away and then I read it again, and it still bothers me. Is the first line on 3. Anything that is free is likely to be abused. I just think it's worded in a way that is just very frank, demeaning, derogatory. Not everything.
It's just not professional.
Yeah, not everything in life that is free will be abused. That's a fact. There are things that are, but I think like that, some things like that we can clean up. I know this board a year ago had the conversation on the amount. I think that can be discussed a little bit more too. But to Pat's point, again, those of you that were here for finance, there are looming difficult decisions ahead of us. So you are right, the money needs to be recouped, or we need to be very serious about tax increases. There's just, this is a mechanism and a situation that once I think worded properly, agreed upon, I think will actually be beneficial. So I was right where you were about tabling this. I would just ask if you were gonna make that motion that we can get a time frame, whether that's a month or we wanna try to have this set for the beginning of the year. What you feel?
I feel it needs to be done before we're done with the budget cycle in finance. So I think next month's meeting would be fine.
Okay, so your motion is to table this, send it back to staff, have whatever is tweaked or need to be tweaked. Trustees will email Administrator Jackson or myself with things that they feel should be adjusted after reviewing it again.
That's my motion.
Yes, Troy.
Did our legal counsel have a look at this also before this?
The only edits that have been made from the previous adoption are the number of calls before it's generated and the fee amount. So this is something you all have already adopted in verbiage a year ago.
But this new draft, did Todd have opportunity to take a look at it?
It's a fee update and a number update, so substantially there's no change other than just those 2 things. So no, he hasn't had a look at it. This is not one I would send to Todd.
I got a question, could we build an individual for an apartment? Is this talking if we can't collect, we're gonna put it on the tax bill? I don't understand why we wouldn't go to the individual first, or I'm misreading this.
So if you, do you want to answer that one?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you build the individual, the question then becomes what services rendered and under what billing code would we use? Because no services rendered, right? They've called us there. We may clean them up, we may put them back into bed, but there's not a billing code that we can use to actually generate a bill for insurance or for Medicaid or Medicare. So ultimately, like, well, what did we do? And the answer is we gave up a call somewhere else, or we provided some service that wasn't, legally a medical service, but it was still a service to the property. So this is tied to the property. That's the the legal basis of how it works.
I think that's, one that we're gonna have to debate amongst ourselves in depth, and I just think that's the fair process. And I know you respect that, Administrator Jackson. I know you do. I know you respect process.
Yep.
I know that about you. All right, can we go back to the details of your motion?
Everything you said.
All right, Troy? Troy, I would like, would you like
Fuck it up.
Trustee Ewert to add for legal review with Todd Terry? I don't have a problem with that if that's something that you want done.
I don't, I think it'd be a great idea to have him have a look at it
I will
before.
amend my motion to add Troy's request.
Okay, so I heard Trustee Ebert's motion to be, I would love to table this, ordinance until the October meeting,
With legal review.
with legal review.
Board
Trying to
review and
remember all
staff
the-
review.
Yes, and then, you all will, if there,
And social media review.
we all noted, everybody's comments here, but if there's anything else that comes to mind, you will get in touch with Administrator Jackson or myself to add to the conversation. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That is Trustee Ebert's motion. Do I have a second? After all that, I sure hope we have a second.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any other conversation on this ordinance? Hearing none, all in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that will be tabled till next month.